So let's continue our look at the Smithsonian Book of Newspaper Comics. We will look at number 19, an example of the Newlyweds by George McManus in 1909, and Mr. Tweedle by Johnny Gruel from 1914. But first, the next page of the Encyclopedia of Comics, we are in a section where we just have uh, what's the word? Sort of a kind of an almanac of sorts. Perhaps the annals of comics where just goes year by year talking about when certain comics debuted and when certain syndicates came into being. So we're still at the turn of the century. So here we have a black and white example of a Little Nemo Sunday. This is from 1909, so it's a little past some of the Little Nemos we've seen before. In this case, we don't even have the header. We just have a 12 by 12 frame, essentially, with the exception of the ending. And once again, we see some of the elements that we've seen before. Obviously, wonderful imagination and line work. Good three-dimensional drawing. We have, foreground and background and all of that. And the dialogue being somewhat superfluous. So it looks like Little Nemo is playing with a toy, Noah's Ark, and the Ark grows. And at first a squirrel and some birds come out, but as the Ark grows, real animals escape. And it is very, very wonderful to see this progression. And Nemo is just saying, "Oh no, go back into the Ark. Go back." This was actually kind of funny, because he says, "My mama, doesn't want a lot," next panel, "of animals in the house." Nemo couldn't say that all at once. Now, for this last panel, I do like how McKay uses space. Since he has this small panel here where Nemo wakes up, and this empty space, he used the giraffe's head. And this is good not just because it fills space, but look at the way how our eyes follow the neck in the black color. So that's very effective. That's something we see a lot in comic books and manga, the way of using black space and shapes to move the eye along. Now here we have an example of Baron Munch, 1909 by George Harriman, and an early example of Crazy Cat here in the bottom. Looks like the Baron is on a diet, so he steals bird food, and that's the joke. He eats some bird food. So, the newlyweds and their baby. I suppose in some ways this prefigures Blondie, as we well know, Blondie was a flapper girl originally, and their strip was sort of about newlywed life, and then their strip sort of changed to a gag a day sort of affair, where nothing really happened. But this seems to be the earlier version of that for a previous generation. We have a very elaborate dinner party, and everyone is complimenting the dinner party, and we get to see the husband and the wife and the baby. And then you're supposed to read this panel next. So it's the next day. They said, "Oh, the dinner party went well," and then we see in reality how people felt, and they're all insulting the husband and wife and the baby and saying everything is cheap, blah blah blah. And then she has a wig, and she says, "Oh, it's the prettiest one there." Now, for this next one, Mr. Tweediddle, it seems to be part of a story, kind of a picture story. And you'll notice, of course, that we have typed narration, and we have different shapes, different types of rectangles for the panels. And so it's sort of like looking at a children's picture book, a little whimsical, a little bit like Dr. Seuss in some ways. A moon man and a boy meet the Moodles, and the Moodles pop, so they have to get some rubber cement to put them back together. So, very imaginative, very unique. So tomorrow, we can look at The Naps of Polly Sleepyhead, which is going to follow the Little Nemo formula, I suppose, and Naughty Pete, which has a very interesting color palette. So we will continue to look at classic comics, and I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.